All right. Hello, LinkedIn and YouTube. We are live streaming today with Judah Phillips, who I'll bring onto the stage in just a minute. But I just want to let you know we're going to be talking about machine learning for marketing. And Judah Phillips is the CEO of Squark. He's also an author. And I just, before I bring him in, I'd like to ask you guys who are, just joining us now, what is your experience with machine learning and or marketing, just so we have a better sense of who we have in the audience. And I'm going to go ahead and take a look to see who's joined the session. Super excited about this. We have over 200 people signed up to join the session, and I think it's going to be a great learning experience. So, like I said, if you're just joining us right now, just let me know your experience with either machine learning and or marketing. I see Trip is here. Hey, Trip. We've got Hamdi, Abjit, Mariam. Hello. All right, while you guys are tuning in, I will bring Judah Phillips onto the stage. Hello, Judah.
Hey, everybody. Hello, LinkedIn. Nice to see you. Hope you're all doing well, sheltering in place or quarantining or otherwise at home.
Quarantining, yes, I think that's what most of us are doing in the moment. So for those who don't know Judah, can you give us a little intro? What do you do? Who are you?
Yeah, so I'm Judah Phillips. I've been doing analytics for a long time, since I was a boy, and I'm currently the co-founder of Squark. And what Squark does is it helps marketers and marketing analysts quickly predict what's going to happen in their business. We use supervised machine learning to do that. For a long time, we tried to not say we're a machine learning and AI company, but we've gotten lumped into that category, and so we're running with it. And happy to be here and answer your questions and talk to you a bit about what's happened in the past in analytics and where I think it's going in the future. I've written 3 books on the topic. One pretty early on. I was running analytics for a pretty large internet company back in the day, and so I created building a digital analytics organization to kind of capture that experience in time, since not a lot of folks in the world were doing that. And that ended up yielding 2 books, one called The Digital Analytics Primer, for folks who have been in web analytics and its sort of emergence into mobile and, outside of the browser type of analytics. I covered the definitions in some use cases. And then I was asked by the publisher to write some more books. So I took a shot at writing a book on e-commerce analytics. It was supposed to be 2 books, one more of a descriptive overview of the topic, and the second teaching edition. And unfortunately, the teaching edition never saw the light of day with some changes at Pearson at the publisher.
Oh, how come?
So who knows? Things shifted. And so if anyone ever is interested in, that part of the book, I'd be happy to share some of that stuff, which goes over the data and the analysis in a little more depth than the core book. And what else have I done? I've worked with a lot of different companies over the last 20 or so years, both in a brand capacity internally, and then also as a consultant with some pretty large brands, helping them with data strategy and roadmaps and organizational models and technology selection and implementation and stuff like that.
Great. Well, you're the perfect person to talk about machine learning for marketing, I think. And, before we really get into the topic, I just want to quickly check the comments. So we've got Mark, he's an MBA in marketing, 2 years of consulting, just finished the Meta's Data Science Bootcamp. We've got Yulia joining us here. Abigail works for a machine learning marketing company that does consulting for marketers. It's always good to see who's joining. We've got Mariam, marketing expert in the financial sector. Let's see. And Sihan said he's been looking forward to this session all the way from India. So.
Oh, well, hello. We're in India.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. We're in India, Sihan. Let us know where you're coming in from. All right. So why do we need machine learning in marketing? What's wrong with marketing? Why do we even need machine learning in there?
That's a great question. So why do we need machine learning in marketing? Traditionally, marketing has been largely a descriptive and diagnostic. Marketing analytics has been largely a descriptive and diagnostic activity, right? The general, the gestalt of marketing analytics is to go and hopefully collect your business questions and your requirements, and map those to KPIs, and maybe instrument a site, collect the data, and then report on those KPIs, hoping that you can figure out which ones are leading and which ones are lagging, and you can put them into charts and graphs and fancy data visualizations, and then tell a data story, right? Data storytelling. And that is an approach, and that can work, but my opinion is that doesn't tell the full story, right? What can help to inform the full story is not just what's happened in the past, and maybe sort of kind of why it's happened, right? But what's going to happen in the future. And with the rise of easier to access algorithms and more compute power, it's possible to use techniques that really weren't even available to the layperson or the the non-programmer, the non-PhD just years ago, in a way that's very quick and seamless, and gives you good enough results to apply to your marketing data, so you can predict. The way I've talked about it in the past is that folks are looking at KPIs and dashboards, and they're indirect and direct actors, and they're reading the tea leaves, and they're kind of looking in the rear view mirror as they're attempting to drive their car forward. And I don't know about you, Kate, but with the exception of maybe Tesla's autopilot, it's probably pretty hard to drive your car forward successfully looking in the rear view mirror. You never know when you're going to go around that corner and there's that telephone pole up ahead and you collide with it. So, if you can actually orient your marketing forward, right, forward looking, such that you have an indication, or at least, a better than a coin flip idea of what might happen in the future, then you can take, proactive action as opposed to reactive action. So I think, when you query something like predictive marketing analytics, there's less than 20,000, links across Google. So it's largely underexploited. And so I think, to become better than just descriptive and diagnostic, marketing can get into the prescriptive and the predictive and the prescriptive. And of course, that's not to mean that I'm the first one to think of this by any means, not at all, right? Kind of a morphogenic theory. Everybody creates things at the same time, and you wonder who wins. It's not like Thomas Edison was going to create the light bulb. So at the end of the day, I'm at Squark, and I've been focusing on over the last several years, both as a consultant and as now an owner of a brand, is how do you put that forward looking approach in the hands of marketers who have data dexterity, but largely may not understand or have the time to code and understand the underlying algorithms.
Yes, and we'll definitely get into the need for coding skills for marketing. But before we even get into that, maybe let's talk about 3 or 4 applications and use cases that marketing can use machine learning for.
Yeah, so if we just talk about use cases, I mean, the most common one people talk about all the time, right? And is
personalization churn. Or
churn. So churn. So most companies have customers, you hope, and those customers sometimes stop being customers, and that is more expensive in the long run than actually acquiring customers. So if you can learn from the relationships in your CRM, in your CDP, your customer record, right? And label who's churned and who's not churned, it's possible with a model class called binary classification to produce a mathematically validated churn model that can be applied to new data to predict the, not only who's going to churn or who's not going to churn, but what's the probability to be in each class, churn or not churn. So churn is the most, common one. As a matter of fact, when we started Squark, the initial idea was we were building binary classifiers for churn, and I wanted to sell it for $19.99 a month. But we ended up moving away from that model a little bit, did some unsupervised machine learning networking with BI companies, and moved into our own independent software and expanded the capability well beyond binary classification. So churn is one. Now, when you start to look at something like promotional optimization, right? So you're sending a bunch of promos out or coupons or offers, right? Maybe you have 10 offers you send out, and you have response data from those offers. Well, you could use multinomial or multi-class classification, multivariate classification, two, a lot of ways to describe it, but it's multi, right? Multi-class, 3 or more classes to learn from who's responded in a way that you feel is successful to those 10 offers, and then predict for new customers who's likely to respond to which offer. So, Squark would give you, here's the offer you respond to, and here's the probability of the other 9. So promotional optimization is another one. Related to that in multi-class, you could do predictive segmentation. So I've seen some success with customers segmenting their customers based on already known personae or segments, and learning from those relationships and how they've labeled their data in the past to then apply to new data so they can do predictive segmentation. And that covers, classification and regression, right? Excuse me, classification, both binary and multinomial. And then you get into regression, right? So regression is another model class. My friend one of the chief architect of Squark is a gentleman named Professor Nick Brown, and he's a very bright man. And when you ask him, what's regression, and I hope I'm answering this correctly, or else I'm going to get a bad grade, is it's really predicting the next value, right? It's what it's doing,
Right.
And so there's a lot of values you can predict in marketing. So if I know, for example, customer pricing or either customer lifetime value, I can use regression to learn from those existing values in the data to predict on new data to suggest, for example, what might customer price should be, or what might a customer lifetime value be in the future. So that covers the regression class. Right. And then, of course, unbeknownst to a lot of people, because we don't advertise it too much, and it's certainly not in our freemium version, we have this capability to do automated time series, which is pretty cool, right? So, you can do time series to predict an next period value with regression. How we do that is we break dates into factors, the day of the week, the month, the year. But that doesn't really incorporate things like seasonality and the changes in data and time periods, like the holiday season. So automated time series capability can allow you to forecast, for example, sales, right? Clicks, conversion rates, things like that, what they might be over time, learning from the past, incorporating seasonality, volumes, and things like that to predict into end periods in the future. So, by simply thinking of the common supervised machine learning classes, binary classification, multinomial classification, regression, and time series, there is a ton of way to fit your marketing data into that.
We have a lot of questions that came in, by the way, Judah. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Let's start.
I'll answer as many as I can.
Yes, let's do this rapid fire. So Yulia's asking, what is churn? I mean, basically losing customers, right? But do you have a more elaborate description of churn?
It's a good way to describe it, Occam's razor. I don't know if we need to, formalize it into some super buzzy, definition. But fundamentally, what churn is when customers stop being customers, right? They leave. And I'm sure that's happened to a lot of people. Maybe you've switched your electric company, or, you didn't want to buy the same car brand, right? Or, maybe you decided you don't like the particular orange juice, right?
Yes.
Or, you just don't like your web analytics provider anymore. So you switched to a new web analytics provider, right? That's an instance of churn. The idea being, you don't want a lot of churn, right? There's a whole sector of professionals, and it's an emergent field that's pretty cool, called customer success, right? And these people are more than customer service. They are tasked at the executive level with ensuring that churn at a SaaS business doesn't fall below a certain amount. So, the best businesses have 100% retention. Like, are you switching from Google, right? Are you switching from Apple? Well, Apple maybe has some little lower retention, but
So
I know the Android users out there are wincing at me, but more seriously, you want to retain your customers. So, churn is, the opposite of retention.
Thank you. All right. So Sihan You asked him which part of India. He is from a southern state called Kerala. I don't know much about
Cool.
that. All right.
Cool. Well, welcome. It's great to have you here. It's awesome to connect across the ether, right? And get to know you a little bit better. So thanks for sharing. I'm outside of Boston, Massachusetts.
Yeah, you're not too far from me. I'm in New York, a few hours away. So, You ready for the next one?
I'm ready.
All right. Alistair Moore is asking, where do you get the biggest bang for your buck with machine learning in marketing? So, you have a budget.
I can't just say the company that I work for. I think the biggest bang for the buck is being able to understand what are the critical use cases in your business that you can actually action, and tie those back to fundamentally a rubric that we've come up with at Squark, which is which two things are going to happen. So if you want to predict which two things are going to happen, like which two classes, which two entities, right, going to have outcomes in the future, and you have labels for it, churn or not churn, you do binary classification. If you have three or more outcomes, right, that you like to model, multi-class or multinomial classification. If it's a single period forecast, like how much should I charge? What will this customer be worth? That's a regression. And if you're looking, so how much, right, is kind of a regression question. And then how much for how long is more of a forecasting question. So, if you sort of remove all of the pink elephants and, all the white lab coats and the ivory towers, and you just distill it down to those four questions, which two things are going to happen? Which three or more things are going to happen? How much is going to happen? How much is going to happen for how long? You can apply so many different capabilities to marketing in that way and exploit the emergent power of machine learning to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, question from Mark. He says, Judah, how is Squark handling massive disruptions like the current pandemic in your machine learning algorithms? And he caveats it by saying, if you can answer that.
That's a great question. I can answer any question. The question is, will
I know that. I was excited to have you on,
right? And will I be right? Right. So I'll answer questions. And one of the things, after writing some books, is I've taught at some of the schools in Boston. BU, Babson. I've guest lectured a bunch. As an adjunct, even creating the marketing analytics and digital analytics courses at one of the colleges in BU. So, happy to pontificate a little bit, if you don't mind. But in terms of COVID, I think one of the ways that we responded to COVID is we thought, maybe we should release the software for free to COVID-19 researchers. And we had a conversation about that. And to be honest with you, we thought that was maybe exploiting the situation to our own benefit a little bit. And we thought that, why would we do that? That seems kind of, low class is probably a terrible pejorative to use, but it just seemed like, jumping on the bandwagon and trying to exploit a tragedy or in this pandemic.
Yeah, I know. The number of emails I got about how companies are handling COVID is just, there's like a little gym I took my kids to probably 4 years ago, and they emailed me, FYI, this is how we're handling the pandemic. Okay.
So that's not how we're handling it. So, we have a brilliant marketer that works with us. His name is John. And, he really cautioned against that. And John has a vast array of experience in a number of sectors over a good portion of time now, where, I take his advice to heart. So, and we all agreed. So the next thing we thought about is, well, what's really happening in the world? Well, people are staying at home, right? They're not getting to socialize as much. They're still having to work. And unfortunately, some companies have responded despite raising inordinate amounts of capital with laying off good portions of their workforce. So there's a lot of active job seekers right now, unemployed people, right? And there's probably some passive seekers who aren't too happy with those companies maybe exploiting that situation. So there's a lot of people who want to learn new things, and they have the time. Because they have the time, or they want to learn new things in their jobs and apply them to the betterment of their own team and company. So we thought, you know what, instead of charging for licenses, we're just going to accelerate our strategy, which is really a freemium model, right, with product-led growth, right? Very inspired by the company HubSpot, right? They fundamentally define the space. And so, you get a great, awesome offering from HubSpot. And as you begin to use it a bit more and you understand what you need, they very righteously add some monetization into it to tell you when you should, get more contacts or, do other things in the product. So in the same way, what we did is we said, listen, we're just going to give this software away for free. We're not going to charge you 7 figures or 6 figures, and we're going to keep it free in a freemium version forever. And we're going to give you all that power that I just described, with the exception of the time series stuff, to be honest with you. And with some limits, right, around rows and projects. And, we do a lot of automated data science behind the scenes, from feature selection to feature engineering to balancing classes to, various ways that we enable the data to be detailed and prepared to work within the algorithm. So some of that stuff we don't have in the freemium model, but it's by far, in my opinion, and again, my opinion, the easiest, most accurate, and I can prove that against many of our competitors, and simplest to use to get those answers. We're a startup though, so we still got some work to do there on the product, and we're putting a lot of time and effort into it. So that's how we really responded, Kate, is we just said, you know what, we're going to try to help people with what we have. And how can we help people? We can give away our stuff for free. Let them upskill, let them learn to do this stuff in their jobs. You know what? Hopefully some of that good karma will come back to us in the form of annual recurring revenue. And if it doesn't, hey, that's fine. I've written a lot of blog posts and done a lot of free stuff before, and people have come up to me at conferences and said, I read when I used to have a blog. Read your blog, and it helped me move my career in a different direction. So I think the shareholders at Squark feel the same way.
Well, actually, this brings us very nicely to the next question from Mariam, who's asking for, do you have any resources like books, online courses, or let's throw blogs in there that a person who's starting out in machine learning in marketing can reference?
It's a largely undefined space, which is cool. So we have a bunch of training videos that we're starting to put up, kind of coming out of our shell a little bit. And my co-founder and myself, as well as the team, have been producing videos and instruction guides, as well as white papers to help denote how to apply this stuff and think about it, whether you're in marketing or it's kind of related sales, right? Or you're in an agency and you're delivering services or consultancy. So, I always encourage you to go to Squark and check out our, we've got video library, we've got glossaries, we've got AI tips. Some of them tend to be a little more data sciencey than business tips, but that'll change over time. Subscribe to our newsletter. So you can start there. I know that's kind of self-serving as a recommendation.
Hey, if that's the best source, I'm actually going to share a link to that. I see you've got white papers. Cool. Is that a good place to start?
Yeah, totally. And some of them aren't gated, I love to put up gates, maybe I'm like the Wall Street Journal or something like that. But my team doesn't always like to put up gates. So we've got some stuff there that you don't have to register for and get cookied with Pardot. But there's blogs out there. There's a lot of data science-y oriented stuff that, gets super technical and, kind of, in many cases, regurgitates 10-year-old analytical thinking from digital analytics and regular analytics world. But, you can read that stuff too. You can check out my books. I mean, I'm always a big fan of, a friend of mine works at Google. His name is Avinash Kaushik, and I've been reading his blog and his newsletter that he has now for years. I mean, years and years. And there's other ways that you can learn. For example, there's a cool new e-learning platform called develop.com that has a boatload of stuff about machine learning. Coursera, the Khan Institute. There's a lot of open available, whether it's MIT courses, right? CSAIL, to find out about this stuff. But like specific to marketing, one of the reasons why, even though our platform could, model anything in theory, if you do everything for everybody, you do nothing. So we focus on marketing, and largely because despite the MarTech, 8,000 from Scott Brinker, there just aren't a lot of companies that do what we do in the world. We're not the only one who has the capability by any means, right? And some people have built capabilities, I'm sure, that are stronger and have spent hundreds of millions of dollars to do it. But I think, you start at Squark and then explore from there. Do your Googling.
Start with Squark. I love it. And actually,
Yep.
I love how you keep setting it up for the next question I'm about to ask, because
okay, cool.
The next one was from Sampurna, and she's asking, how was Squark chosen as a name for your company? So.
Well, I'll go back to John, who's our marketing leader. Okay. The actual name of the company is Visidata. So when we started the company, kind of spawned out of my consulting company.
Okay.
And then I had this relationship with a BI firm. And, we wanted to create a capability to visualize data. This was years ago. This is a very early version of the company. And so we named it Visidata, right? Like it sounds a lot like data visualization. The original tagline before we started to move into, more of the predictive was seen through the cloud. So what I realized is that a lot of these BI companies, they give you tools, but what they don't do is they don't give you, this has changed, and we helped build some of these for at least one company. They don't give you quick starts or business in a boxes. So we started building out these, quick start applications, KPIs and visualizations that we knew from our experience in e-com, insurance, healthcare you would need. And we thought, all right, we'll deploy these as capabilities that can sit on top of BI platforms. Right. So we started with Visidata, right? And then a good friend of mine named Jonathan Mendez, who's just a brilliant marketing thinker. That's who I would recommend you read. You read Jonathan Mendez, right? The former CEO and founder of YieldBot, as well as very cool other companies I won't name, and you can look at it. But Jonathan Mendez is a crusader for relevance. So I love his marketing. We were talking one day. And he said, this name, it's not doing any good, Judah. You got to change this name. And so when we actually had a little bit of, capability to bring in some new resources, and we brought in our marketing leader, John, we went through a rebranding exercise. And so we probably have about 18 other cool domain names that we checked out. And, we had this rubric to come up with a name. And eventually some people wince and hate the name. It's okay.
Squark?
Yeah, some people don't like it, but a lot of people like it. Some people think we should be named Marketing Predict, right? Or Predict Now, something very descriptive to what we do. And that is one way to think about a name. Another way to think about a name is like Google.
I was just going to say Google or Amazon.
Right? And how inspirational are those amazing companies and those people who have succeeded in growing and executing and who run it and work in it today. But our HubSpot, right? HubSpot's a little more in between, right? Kind of a hub, a spot, right? But it still isn't describing exactly what they're doing. Yeah. Yeah. And so Squark just number one is the super symmetrical counterpart of a quark, which is, the Squark is a theoretical particle. And when we came up with that, we looked at the definition and has a spin of 0. So I like this idea of like no spin. And also it can function as a verb, right? So as we grow, and, hopefully as people like our stuff, right, they'll start using it. Have you squarked your data? Squark it, And even with predictive marketing analytics, and I think I cause my team to wince when I do this, but I call it squarketing. Right, just because it's fun and it's memorable. Everybody will remember Squarketing.
I'm sure it'll catch on, Judah.
So that's how. Yeah, that's why. And again, it's the brilliance of marketing. Some people think that, right? Others may not like the name. It's a little too squawk, in England, right? Or it comes off as more of a, something on the tongue or with a cutting edge that sounds a little more crass.
I like it. So,
okay, cool. If you like it, I feel good. Check.
All right. So I think at this point, maybe you can share your screen and we can see what Squark is all about. Show us a little demo What can you do with it? And
yeah, are there any other questions before we kind of get into?
oh yeah, there are
into
plenty of
that?
questions, and what I'm doing is I'm actually copy pasting them into a Word doc so we don't lose them, because LinkedIn goes really fast with updating the comments.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yes,
So
so
yeah,
I'm
let
definitely
me let me just get it out. So you guys are gonna have
yeah.
to give
While you
me a
set that up,
second.
I'll just remind people. We're talking about machine learning for marketing. So if you have any questions for Judah about this topic or any topic really, he's agreed to answer any and every question that comes through, even if it's
I
about baby
will.
bunnies. He's an experienced baby bunny owner, I guess.
Well, this is kind of, I won't share the sadness, but yes, there is a bunny nest in my backyard, in the very near suburbs to Boston, and we had a little tragedy this morning. I'll leave it at that. So I had to take care of that before we came. I don't actually have bunnies, other
Yeah.
than these wild bunnies. So yeah, okay, let me get here. This is completely my fault here. I want to get a
Yeah,
home
take your
directory for
time.
you
So
guys.
comments and questions. Yeah, I'm just copy pasting them for now. All right, so Porna has a question. So like I said, if you guys have questions for Judah, just feel free to put them in. If we're, demoing, don't feel like we're ignoring you. We will get to it.
Yes,
Judah has
we
brought his
definitely will
calendar
take
for
that.
the week. He's going to be on here.
Yeah, so let me get Squark up, and we're going to check out the premium version of Squark here. And let me make sure I can get in, as I have a whole bunch of. Just go into my typical
All right.
account. I'm going to see a bunch of projects. All right, we're in.
We're in?
This one, yep.
Okay, so once you click share screen, I'll bring it into the view, and then everybody's going to see your.
Okay, so let me get there. It's the first time I've used StreamYard here, but it's pretty easy.
StreamYard's awesome, by the way. Anyone who's looking to live stream, definitely recommend StreamYard.
They've got a very Google meetings like sharing interface here.
Yeah, it's just like
So
Zoom. There it is. Okay, so I've
totally,
added
am I
it to the
here?
screen.
Look at that.
I know.
Very, very psychedelic. Okay, so let's check this out. These are, so first of all, before we get into it, we're doing supervised machine learning, okay? So what supervised machine learning means is that, fundamentally, without getting into the nitty gritty, you use past data with labels to learn from, and you can apply the models you create from the learning or the model to new data that hasn't been seen before. But here's the dirty secret about machine learning. It does very well predicting the future when the future looks like the past. And so I want to answer that COVID-19 question about machine learning features as well as we kind of go through this. And so, common use case in marketing, churn. So you need training data to learn from that contains a label. And so we're just going to drag and drop CSV files into Squark right now. Okay. And you need another file that contains new data that's not in training. You never want to have the data that's in training or in your production file, the file you want to predict in that you're training on. So you have two files. You have your training file with your historic data and the label, and then you have a production file that has new data that has the same attributes, right, as the training data, the same feature space. The feature space grows, you just ignore it or you retrain. So I just want to show you what this looks like. And this is Telecom data. And this is something I show quite a bit. So, we take CSV data, Excel data, zip data, different connectors, and so on and so forth.
Can you connect to databases as well, like Salesforce and other things?
We can on the freemium version.
Okay.
So 7590. This is, so each row is a record. So this is a customer record, right? And this is the gender of customer 7590. Not a senior citizen. Bought their telecom service at a partner. Does not have dependents. Has had a contract for a month. Does not have phone service. Does not have multiple lines. Uses DSL. maybe dates it a little bit. Online security, right? They don't have it. They have online backup. They don't have device protection. They don't have tech support. They don't have streaming movies or video. They're on a contract that's month to month. It's paperless. The payment is made electronically. They've paid in their 1 month $29.85, and this is their total charges. And so we have, in this case, a very small data set. We have customers running hundreds of millions of rows and thousands of columns, but this one is one that I demo all the time. So you have, as I mentioned, a label in a training data set. And we're going to talk a little bit about the labels in a second. But when the label has two classes, this could be Kate and Judah. In this case, it's no and yes, right? Have these rows churned. This could be, sun and moon. This could be Jack and Diane, right? It could be a 0 or a 1. But you need the labels. And in this case, it's two classes. So this could do binary classification. So, you can see here this customer 5575 didn't churn, but this third customer here churned. So we've got label. And so that's the training data. And then we have this production data. And in this production data, we have the same feature space. And what I mean by that, that's like a super geeky machine learning term, where you simply just have the same column names. The values are different, right? Different customers, they do different things. They have different properties of their service, but we don't have that final label, right? So the question we're asking here is, can we learn from this training data and the relation, whoops, let me close that. Learn from this training data, well, it opened anyway, you'll see it again, right? Where we do have a label, and I'll kind of mansplain this a little bit, do have a label, and apply that learning to very quickly build a valid churn model, right, on this new data. So how do we do that in Squark? Well, we log into Squark, and here's Squark, right? I've been working with my friend Sergey on some stuff. When you log into Squark, right, we didn't want to create a video game. The whole idea is like, you don't want to spend a lot of time in your software. If your company's spending a lot of time in software, they're not spending a lot of time doing other things like generating profitable revenue or reducing cost or, related things like boosting efficiency. So we wanted to create software that was a shopping cart like experience, like Amazon. So I brought in my friend Pep's company, CXL, to help me design this interface and, where we're at with it. So each one of these white rows is a project. And so, we limit the projects in the freemium version. But when we create a new project, we can name it, Kate, data, right? We create a project. And you can see now the project's been created in Squark. You can click on it. And it's a very simple flow. Training file, production file, the speed setting, which I'll explain as we go through, and then the results. And so simply what we do here is we take our training data, right, and we drag it over. Now, people are going to say, oh, did you clean the data? No, we haven't bought Trifacta. We didn't buy Paxata, right? So we didn't want to create redundant software when we built Squark. So there's plenty of BI platforms, plenty of programming language, plenty of capabilities that most companies we have worked with have to clean up their data. That being said, we do have a data detailing step, which I will explain. And if you ever see one of our webinars, there's one coming up next week. I'll kind of walk through all the cool stuff we do. We just probably don't have time to go through it here, but if we do, I will. So now we've uploaded the data. It's a SaaS, right? Yes, we have an API that we could publicly expose. Yes, we could take this and deploy it in your private cloud or white label it. But we're looking at the SaaS version that runs on everybody's favorite infrastructure right now. I won't even name who that is.
I have a question, Judah. If your CSV file didn't have column headers in the first row, would this still work, or do you have to update that before you put it in here?
Well, we'd always like to see, would it not work? We'd always like to see column heads, because then you know what you're going to select. Otherwise, it'll be a little bit cryptic, right? So even if you put in A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or something like that. What's pretty important, though, is, if you're going to use the Excel or if you're going to use CSV, right, or just not a connector, is, we support UTF-8 encoded CSVs. So you've got to, encode it with UTF-8. And, there may be some internationalization concerns when you save UTF-8 in other countries. So long story short is I think you want to have column heads. And what we do is we do a little data profiling. Again, our audience is not data scientists. Love data science, obviously, love data scientists, want to make them more successful and more agile. But our audience is really non-technical people or people with data dexterity. And not non-technical, people with data dexterity that know the business, have access to the data, can prepare these files or work to get these prepared. And so we could report things like the standard deviation and so on and so forth. But not in the freemium version. So we've got this thing going on to do a little profiling. And then we also detect the data types, right? So, maybe we detect an enumerated or a categorical column, but you want to change it to a real or an int, right? And you make it ordinal or something like that. So we allow you to do very quickly some data type modification. And, well, we could infer or impute or really infer the dependent variable of the target, right? We use some kind of very simple terminology, right? This is the dependent variable. We all remember that from our stats class in college. We allow you to pick which one you want. So if you pick an enumerated column with 2 classes, you get to do a binary classification. We'll do binary. If you pick a column with 3 or more classes, right, we're going to do a multi-class classification. And if you pick an int or a real, we're going to do a regression. And now if we have a date, in here and we select that and we get the time series activated, we would kick in our automated time series. So just in this one file, we could predict binarily streaming movies, which contract to offer, how much should you charge them, what payment method are they likely to use, will they go on paperless billing, right? So we do care a lot about security. And so we're OWASP top 10 compliant and all that, and do our best to encrypt as much as possible all of the communications. And we do allow customers to fully delete all their data and all their account. Lots of different ways to kind of organize this for people who are interested in the back end. But we take security very seriously. So we click next, and there's a lot going on once the preprocessor kicks in. But one of the things we do very quickly is just detect, when there's columns that just have no statistical value to machine learning. And in this case, now we're asked to select our independent variables, or what are colloquially known as predictors. So data has bias that you can't remove just from deselecting a column. Like, I get that, right? One of the famous things is, this classifier did really good at selecting wolves, right? And then you look at the data, well, all the wolves were taken, in snowy environments, right? The dogs weren't. So it's not the fact that the classifier was that great. It just realized the white background indicated a bias that isn't that helpful for detecting a wolf, but it looked really good at first glance. So we allow you to deselect things that maybe you don't want to use, or, so maybe I don't want to include gender or their age or the familial status. You could exclude those if you wanted to. And then we click next. And that's really all you need to do to set up the learning process. Again, we've completely abstracted this. Could we expose more features? Yeah, we've got it all in the background. It's just, again, our audience and our verticalization. We're not sure right now what people want to see. We have a good idea, and we can roll that out as need be. So we drag over that production file. There's no preview of this file, right? If your feature space doesn't match, say you were missing the gender, we were just looking at that, it would tell you, you're missing the gender. So you could go in and remove that from the analysis.
Okay, so let you know if you're missing something.
Yeah, we get some errors, and like any startup, we always want to do better. And anybody who's going to download the freemium version, we really want your constructive criticism. Good is nice, We also want to hear all the bad stuff, so we can, if there's any,
so you can improve it.
Right?
Yeah,
if there's any, right? So we can continue to improve. So now there's the speed setting. This could turn into a scheduler if we really wanted to. What this does is it allows us to test, and it also gives the appearance of some control over the system. So that's important, I think when you're working with AI systems, you want humans to have some ability to control what's going on, as there's still quite a distrust that a lot of the stuff is black box. We can talk about that in a second. So fundamentally, I can set it to run for 2 minutes. It's an estimate. Could take longer to reach the local optima, could take less time. So and then once we have the model kind of trained, and we've iterated a whole bunch of models, and we've done the validation and cross validation on the automatic holdout, and we've done the early stopping based on our various stopping metrics and the other cool stuff we do, including balancing the classes and feature engineering, feature selection. I'll explain in a second. We just start training the file. So my debug version, I got some stuff here. So it's going to take 2 minutes or so. So we're just going to hang out.
Questions while we wait?
Yeah, let me tell you what's going on here, because I think it's kind of cool. I think from a business perspective, it kind of like, oh my goodness, what is all this stuff? But for analysts, who are intellectually curious by nature, I'll explain. So, not all algorithms handle data in the same way. Some algorithms don't like the fact you have missing values. Others don't mind missing values and expect them to be there by nature. So we start to do things like imputing. Maybe we use mean imputation, or the most frequently occurring enumerated variable, to populate multiple training sets with different data from that original training data set. We could do things like binning data, flattening data, creating dummy variables, doing other transformations and encoding. This is largely called feature engineering. So we've got a lot of automated, a lot is value judgment. We have a good amount of feature engineering automated behind the scenes, including what's called feature selection. Well, before I go there, a feature engineer could be, we take the date factoring, right? We break dates into new columns. If you have a job title in your data, maybe it's a VP and CEO and manager and director, we might create new columns in a 0 or 1 as to whether that job title existed within that particular row. And then there's things that you worry about in machine learning, like, what about, and we get asked this all the time, what about like, this is sort of a geeky term, a multi-collinearity, where there's spurious correlations or correlations between variables. Well, we can figure that out. We have a proprietary method, and there's other open source methods to do that as well. So that's called feature selection. So we can say, we might take 10 columns, expand them to 500 columns, and then reduce them to 15 columns, but only one of those original columns existed. The other 14 columns are feature engineered columns that we determine through engineering and selection are most relevant. Right. So it's stuff that data scientists would do in code and over time, and we're just doing it in our data detailing step. And then, we create, we hold out 20, 30% of the data from training, just leave it on the shelf, like we don't touch it. And then every model we iterate, whether it's gradients or trees or ensembles or general linear models or deep learners, and you'll see some of these best in class algorithm names come back in the next step. We score that 20 or 30% that we hold out, because we already know what happened. Like, we know whether the 20, 30% we held out churned or not. So we just, the model predicts, and we use the receiver operator characteristics and other machine learning best practices, to figure out what's up. And whether, and what I mean by what's up, like which model has in the case of binary classification, the lowest logarithmic loss, right? In the case of multinomial classification, we look at class error. In the case of regression, we look at deviance, and in the case of our time series forecasting, we look at MAE or MSE. So, we kind of use those best practices in data science to ensure that we validate, the accuracy of the models, and then we do, what's called the k-fold cross validation in a certain number of folds. The stuff came back.
It came back. There you go.
Yeah, it came back. It actually works, believe it or not. We did introduce, this should actually say AUC PR for folks out there. I know there's 2 here. We pushed a little release. My bad. So let me just direct you to here. So this is that second file that we pushed out.
Okay.
Right. And or this is the production file. This is the file we want to score in. And what we've done, and I like to call this the data science view. There will be more views that simplify this in the future. We've put the crispy classification label here, right? So we know that this client is likely to churn, and this client is likely to churn. And just this sample, you know, there's a whole bunch of other ones in here. And we give the probability of each class. So in this case, you know, this customer is 77% likely to churn. This one's 72% likely to churn, whereas this customer is, you know, 78% likely not to churn. And so by exporting the system in the free this file in the freemium version, or maybe pushing it to another system for marketing automation, you know, instantly there's actions, not just insights, but actions. Like if I rank order this, I could then see which customers are most likely to churn. And if I'm, you know, the VP of customer success at a SaaS company, right, and I'm having a Monday morning meeting and my churn model hasn't been updated in a year or 3 months or something like that, I can't get service from the data science team. It's not important enough. Well, you know, run it in Squark, and we're going to give you on that Monday morning, here's a rank order list of the customers who we think are most likely to churn in a mathematically validated machine learning way. Yeah, which is super cool. Like this, you know. And could a data science team do this? Yeah. But it would take longer? Yeah. Could they do it better? Maybe. Right. But could they do what we just did, which is we might have built, I don't know, 1,000 models, 2,000 models during that time, maybe fewer models. We kind of cap it in the freemium version. But what we've got here is we've got, these are the models that we like to use. Our time series not represented has ARIMA and SARIMA. We'd like to use Profit as well, and we were experimenting with LSTM and things like that. So what this is showing us is, you know, let's say XGBoost. Maybe we built 50 XGBoost models and validated them. This is the best XGBoost model, right? And again, this is AUC PR. This is the actual AUC. I hoped we'd fix this before this, but it's okay. We'll get it done later today. And so this is the best XGBoost, the best GBM, the best GLM, you know, maybe a legit regression, the best legit regression, excuse me, the deep learner, right? The tree models, the DRF. And so we always use the model that has the highest AUC, right? Could we, in another tier of service, break this automated process up and say, you know, use the XGBoost best model, use the gradient booster? Of course we could. But again, we're trying to make this easy for people who haven't necessarily had deep, elaborate training in this stuff. So we use the stacked ensemble model to do these predictions. Now, the stacked ensemble model is a meta learning process where we learn from these other, the performance of these other algorithms is a good way to describe it. So, you know, XGBoost gets stuff right that the GBM gets wrong, and the general linear model gets stuff right that the GBM gets wrong. So, you know, the idea here is, can we fold either together the best in class models or all of the models and create a better algorithm that's unique and dynamic to your data? And again, this stuff is like, there's no canned model here. This is automated, right? This is dynamically building on each different data set. We cut the thresholds on the max F1, though. The max F1 I could show you is a little higher than that. And then we have a confusion matrix, right? And so the confusion matrix is the most appropriately named machine learning artifact, in my opinion, because if you've never seen it before, it is confusing. So what this is telling us is, like, out of the 4,885 rows that we sampled as we built the best model that we used, the stacked ensemble, we ran it for 2 minutes. Here's the performance. The model was about 82% accurate. And I know, there's an argument here. There's some folks, accuracy. What about business value? Like, I get it, right? But we're gonna do some machine learning here, and then you apply it to the business with your analysts. So, it was a little better guessing no's than yeses, right? Or predicting no's than yeses. But again, you run it for longer, this gets more intelligent. And then what's kind of cool here in this version is I can click on, things like the model, and I can see some of the engineered features.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my question, if you can actually show that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, totally. And we're doing a lot more to expose, some of the engineering features, as well as more model explainability, whether it's gains lift plots or ICE or PDPs, partial dependency plots. What we're looking at here is the month-to-month contract. And the month-to-month contract, right? This month-to-month was not a column, right? This month-to-month was a value in the contract. If you guys remember, it was like month-to-month, 1 year, 2 year, I believe. So what it's telling us is the month-to-month contract is, the most statistically significant indicator of churn. Now, I have had some people tell me, oh, it's leaky data, right? Because it says 100% importance here. But no, it's just, you can calibrate the variables of importance on a scale of 0 to 100 to 0 to 10, or you can give the uncalibrated importances. The uncalibrated importances would be like 31,758. They're meaningless. So we made a decision to basically rank on a 0 to 100%, which one is the most statistically significant. It's an S curve. It's kind of linear, but it works. And then say if we introduced our partial dependency plot feature, we could tell you what tenures or what total charges. So, this is freemium version. And so what we've done is we've, effectively in 2 minutes, we've ingested training data, right? We've, if there's a class imbalance, we've balanced the classes the best we could. We've gone through an elaborate feature engineering and feature selection process to iterate across a number of algorithms and automatically hyperparameterize, validate, cross-validate the data to produce the model that we believe fits the data the best based on the AUC measure that we use. Again, I get it. It can be done other ways. And we've produced the confusion matrix to prove that it actually has predictive power. And we've given you the answers that you can then simply export and start calling up. So for example, one of our clients, uses this on Pardot. And what they like to do is before they put the marketing qualified lead in Salesforce, they want to know who to call first. So if we can learn, this is another marketing use case. If we can learn for a call center, right, which contacts are likely to become marketing qualified leads, we can prioritize those so they can be called first by the call center to qualify them to put them into Salesforce, right? Therefore, reducing cost, increasing the potential for quicker profitable revenue. So pretty cool stuff. And then
the coolest part is you've done this with no code, right? You never had to write a line of code.
There's no code. You're absolutely right. It is a no code solution. It's not a low code solution. It is a no code solution. We get again, there's more stuff in the product that I'm not exposing here, but there is an advanced view over here that produces some other reports and files that give data scientists a little bit more of a warm fuzzy, right? For example, whether it's the AIC or the BIC of the model, the Gini coefficient, the F1, the F2, the F0.5, other measures that, that are also specific to the algorithm. So our deep learn or what's the, or the scoring history, how many epochs did it do? All sorts of stuff like that. And that's fundamentally the software in a nutshell in this version. Now imagine, you can reuse your data, right? So all the data I've uploaded, I can reuse. Let's say I want to connect to an API. That is a possibility as well. Lo and behold, you've done a good enough job with data science to action these insights, to move from doing descriptive and diagnostic to predictive and prescriptive.
Yep.
So that's it in a nutshell. That's what we've been working on, and we continue to refine it. Love to have you guys all on here. You sign up for accounts, we'll activate them, get you up and running. You can check out the video library, download our white papers, reach out. We're happy to work. Like our goal is to help at this point. We're happy to work with you and make sure you're successful with it.
So there's a demo on your site, right? I'm just trying to find it so I can share the link.
Yeah, it's like on the homepage, there's a demo of it's like a Salesforce data set, and it's just doing.
I think Chris Brunelli's on. Chris, if you're still on, if you can just share that link would be great so folks can go and download the demo and check it out. Judah, are you still good to go on with questions? I've got more questions.
Yeah, totally. I've obviously I have 1,000 things to do, but I love doing this type of stuff, and I
We'll just
appreciate
take
you.
5-6 more minutes and just power through it.
That sounds good. Happy to doing a lot of public speaking. I used to be concerned at one point that like, oh, I'll have broccoli in my teeth, or I won't zip up my mouth on stage.
Oh,
I
you
realized
didn't
I could
tell you that?
I'll give you just they'll give you a quick sort of public speaking thing. First, it's about you. Are you going to look okay? You figure, all right, whatever. Then it goes into this idea of like, is my content good enough? Right. Well, if you believe in yourself and you think on things, your content's definitely going to be good enough. And then sort of the highest echelon of the public speaking is it's about the audience. Are they getting value out of it? So I'm happy to stay on and make sure everybody's happy.
Yes, seems like everyone's happy. You've gotten a lot of great feedback in terms of this has been a really valuable live stream, and they're learning a lot.
Awesome.
So I'm going to go ahead and jump to Yekaterina's question. She's asking if you could recommend a hot topic for a thesis connected to machine learning in marketing, something that is relevant for companies.
Go. Wow, can I recommend like a thesis for like a master's degree or a PhD?
Sounds like it, like a PhD or something. Yeah.
Gee, wow, that's one that I didn't give too much thought to. I think I could. I'll just come up with something quickly. How do you reinforce? Like, there's this whole idea of like reinforcement learning right now. How do you reinforce, marketing predictions? How do I know? Like, right now you can checkpoint models. So like they learn the data, they checkpoint, use more data, it moves from there, right? But how could you use reinforcement learning to further optimize machine learning use cases for marketing? I think that's really interesting. Transfer learning is pretty interesting. We're looking at like, I should say like a few other things. Like we looked at structured data. Like Squark does have the capability to do natural language processing. So not the freemium version, but if you have in those fields, those cells of that spreadsheet I showed you, if you have like verbatims and long strings, we use something called word to vec. We have a kind of a proprietary approach. Okay. We can detect the synonyms and we can break the most bag of words. We can break the most frequently occurring terms that we feel relevant to the outcome into new vectors, new columns, fundamentally. And so, looking at, reinforcement learning in the context of, structured and unstructured data is pretty interesting. But again, I'm just making that up off the fly. Do more research and talk to other people before you decide to concentrate on that. But that's a cool question.
Yeah. Thank you for providing.
I did one of my theses on, and when I got my master's degree in finance, I did it on the conversion of risk in finance is systematic and unsystematic is changes in corporate governance.
Is it systemic or systematic? I know I always see
there's unsystematic and systematic. So systematic would be something like, in the market. Unsystematic risk would be like COVID. Black swans, externality. So I looked at, I actually looked at unsystematic risk and risk calculation changing as corporate governance changed. So it took me a while to come up with that one.
All right. Okay. Loretta says your demo was intuitive. Jovan said it's an interesting service. He's going to rewatch the video from the beginning because he missed the other half, the first half of it. Let's see. More comments. Let's see. Julie says, seems like Squark can help companies with uncovering what areas to look in. So really good feedback on your demo. Okay, back to questions. Let's see. There are really like 30 questions. I'm trying to just pick.
Cool. Just pick them and let's go.
It's hard to pick one. Okay, Robert, the MetaMaster Vane is asking, how does this stack up against the likes of Adobe Marketing Stack?
I mean, Robert, what can I really say? Like, let's put it this way. What could I say? This is how I think of it. In 2007, I was invited to speak at Adobe Max, and I talked about how Adobe Flash could be integrated with Omniture, right? So the next year they bought Omniture, right? Which was a great product. Some people might disagree with me, especially web trends. But the idea being, Adobe Sensei is interesting, right? They've got a lot of beta features. It's doing some cool stuff. We can do that. we'll beat them on price every day. They've got obviously a bigger company, a lot more overhead. They're going to probably give you a lot more support blended rate with their off US services. They don't need services. Can we connect to the Adobe stack? We can do that, right? Connecting to Adobe right now would be more custom, though the connectors are coming soon.
Okay.
But when I've seen Adobe stuff, it's really around journey, and I can do attribution. The variables of importance are attribution fundamentally. So if I actually have a column that's a cookie, and I know which touches they've had, and I know that they converted or not, I can not only with Squark determine which variables of importance are most predictive or most influential to that conversion. That's your attribution right there. That's true algorithmic attribution, right? Also, the model will score which cookies in the journey are most likely to convert. So with Squark, you don't just get customer journey attribution, you also get prediction on whether they're going to be win, or lost as a salesperson. Yeah. So listen, Squark is a startup. How are we ever going to compete from a share of wallet and share of voice with such an amazing company that's so powerful and impressive like Adobe? We do it differently. We do it much less expensive, and we do it well for where we're at right now.
All right.
Thank you. A colleague of mine, Vital, is their strategist, and as an Adobe shareholder, I've been really proud of what they've accomplished under the leadership of over time folks like Matt Belkin and Brad Rensher and Suresh,
okay,
as well as their current CEO. Chantal, I can't remember his name, but the CEO.
All right. So Sampurna is asking, on your website, it says load data from any source. Is there a data format standard that should be adhered to?
Well, fundamentally, when we created that, we asked that. So that's a good question. So we just said, you know what? We're just going to do, UTF-8, right? Encoded CSV. So fundamentally, what we do is we will translate any encoding into UTF-8. So, any connector we build, it's fundamentally getting the data, right? Creating that CSV, UTF-8 encoded, and then just pushing it into our engine through our API. So, that's the file format, right? Or the encoding and the ultimate primitive file type that we use. But there's a lot of ways to get to that, right?
Right. So I know we're sort of over time by a lot. So I think we'll end with, you mentioned you have a webinar coming up. Where can they go to learn more about that? When is this webinar? What is it about?
Thank you for mentioning that. I hope you attend, Kate. So you can go to the squarkai.com website. Be a yellow bar right on that homepage that says on May 7th at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, there is a webinar. If you click on it, you can register for that webinar. And what we're going to do in that webinar is described on that landing page there. We're going to go over just like I did today. Actually, the churn example is one of the examples. I don't actually walk through the demo like I did here. There you go. That's right. I don't actually walk through the demo, but what I do is I show you data sets derived from common MarTech data sets, systems, and walk through a number of use cases, some of which I've described here, and just show you here's what the data looks like. Here's the target, here's the independent variables, here's the results and what they look like, and here's what you can do with them. And then we kind of get a little bit more into the Squark. The idea being with that webinar is I've gone to a bunch of them, and a lot of them are very conceptual. Like you can do churn, you can do lifetime value, and it's cool to know that, right? It's cooler to actually understand how you do it, right? Or see it done in a way like we just demonstrated that goes, from raw data, right, through a data pipeline, right, that doesn't involve any of the regular characters that you hear and pay a lot for, and you push it out, with a highly accurate model that solves for that problem in minutes.
So May 7th, so people can go
May 7th,
and
yeah, that's what we're going to talk about.
Go to the Squark
Marketing, predictive
website.
analytics, and machine learning.
Yes, and I see Chris Brunelli just added a link to our LinkedIn chat. So Judah, thank you so much for taking the time to educate everyone about machine learning for marketing and taking all of our questions, no matter what topic they were on. So I, appreciate your flexibility and especially going over time by about 35 minutes. So thank you for that as well.
Well, thank you. I also want to thank you for inviting me, Kate, and all the cool stuff that you're doing to advance like this noble quest for truth as analysts, right? To understand our options, what's available, what tools are out there, and surfacing, some of the smaller players, who are out there like Squark in the market. So you're doing a very valuable service, and appreciate your passion and your dedication to our industry and our field. So thank you very much for having me and sharing your time with me.
Dedication, by the way, just saying.
Dedication. I like it. We're dedicated, 100%.
Yes.
And I'm Judah Phillips on LinkedIn. So anyone wants to link in with me, you got questions, shoot them over. I get a ton of LinkedIn requests every day, usually people trying to sell me stuff. So it'll be nice to have questions, and I'll do my best to respond as quickly as possible.
Well, thank you for that offer. And, thanks for everybody who tuned in to listen. This is also going to be recorded and up on YouTube today. So, all right. Have a good rest of your day. And thank you again for being here.
All right. Thank you. Well, take care. See you later. Bye, everybody.